Now let's talk about creating for the brain. So, and this is personal preference as well, but we like to be stimulated when we look at something, but not overstimulated. And there, again, it's personal preference. There are people who look at my work and it's overstimulating for them. You know, like maybe not this one, but say that one, because it's lots of color. So that is something that just over time, yes, this is stimulating, but it still works. And I think it works because there's enough to look at, there's interest. It's not, I don't know that there's a place necessarily for the eye to rest. There are a couple places. You can rest here, and this pot is kind of restful. But my work definitely goes on the side of stimulating. So a couple examples. This is a painting in process, which some might find stimulating enough. You know, they just might say there's enough color in here, there's enough interest, there's texture, and there's plenty going on. There are much quieter paintings that are sold every day. But for me, this lacks something. It's not done. It lacks some kind of interest. I just think it's a little boring. Then as an opposite, here's one that I've been did some finishing details on, and what I'm thinking now is that I'm going to probably find some ways to tone it down. Not necessarily the colors, but I don't feel like a place to really rest at all. So I may even just, come through here with get rid of these green marks so there's just some plain blue there. I don't need much because I really like this painting, but just even along the edge or somewhere here, a little bit of quiet space will make a difference. So just think about creating for the brain, enough stimulation, not too much. Another example is this is actually a painting in process in the class I'm filming now, and it's at the overstimulating stage. So it's just and so what I know it needs is some neutrals to be brought in, like this one, and to just calm some things down because it's just too much. I've got the bright background colors and the foreground colors, and it is lots of fun. And there's nothing like if this feels good to you and this is what you want, I just think it's too much. So that's kind of a little bit about that. Let's look at the next tip and trick. Oh, off-white. Yeah, that's one of my favorites. Okay, off-white. You can make off-white, and I'll show you in the color mixing video how to do that, but it's a bit of a pain, so I usually buy it. And every company has a version. This is the Holbein Ivory White. Turner Gouache has a Ivory White, I think they call it. This is just a matte flow acrylic that I picked up because the price is right and it's a good quality. I'm actually going to do a review on these soon on my YouTube channel because I like them. They're a matte flow acrylic. This is unbleached titanium. That's what it's called sometimes. I've seen it called beige, but basically an off-white. Now, what I love about mixing with off-white versus white, and I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just saying that it's a good tool to have in your tool bag, is that white, we don't realize it, but when we mix white with something, and this is my white. Actually, I'll grab this white. That's my gesso, which I use as white a lot, but I'm going to grab this white aqua gouache and show you the difference. White actually cools colors down, and that's something that you just realize and learn over time. So if you want a warmer, lighter color, that's where an ivory or a beige comes in. So let's look at the difference when we lighten with these two. Let's take our pink again. I'm going to make sure my brush is nice and clean. And let's take this bright pink and lighten it with the white. Okay, there it is, beautiful color. Nothing wrong. Again, I'm not saying that warm white is better than cool white. I just wanted to show you how it has given another dimension to my color mixing. And now let's take the pink with a bit of the ivory. There's just a richness, I feel like, that shows up. I think it's because you're not just adding white, you're adding a little bit of all the colors that go into making an ivory. And I'll show you in color mixing, it really is a lot of different colors that go into making an ivory. So that's why I think you get the richness. This just looks a bit more flat, but it is brighter. So it depends on the effect that you want. You know, you could use the warm white when you're working in the background, let's say of a floral, and your brighter, your whites in the foreground to bring them out as an idea. Let's do one more color. Let's do the blue. So I'll take some of this blue and add some white. Beautiful color. And I'm going to get some blue with the warm white. You can see the difference. It almost has a turquoisey feeling, because in the warm white there's some green and some blue, and so you're getting that depth. And that's just from mixing it with warm white. You know, I feel like I get a complex color with the warm white. I think maybe that's the best way to think of it. This is a more simple color, and this is a more complex color. And there are times when you want one or the other. Let's do one more color because it's so fun. Let's try just a straight red. This is a poppy red and mixed with white. And you can play with this in my color discovery chart too. Okay, there's just a white with red. Wash out that brush. I wonder if I had some ivory still in my brush, because that looks a little more ivory-ish. But we'll see the difference here. Okay, so yeah, you can see that creamier tone. So anyway, just another idea for you to play with. The next tip is on making colors your own. And what I simply mean by that is sometimes, you know, you get creating and you're just grabbing colors and you're putting them on, and that's all good. And if you're layering, they're going to change anyway. But as much as you can, try to refrain from using a color straight from the tube, because then I feel like it's not your color. It's the color that the company made, right? And if you want to make it your own, just add something, anything to it. You know, I mean, take it in one direction or the other, and the color discovery chart's really good for this. But like this poppy red is really pretty. It's very, very bright, but if I add a little bit of orange, I change it, you know, or a little bit of, you know, the warm white or a little bit of the yellow, you know, I change it. And it doesn't need to be that much. I can still get a red and add just a tiny bit of something else and make it my own. So here's the red with the tiniest little bit of yellow in it. And, you know, or the littlest bit of white in it. And it just makes it my own, gives it depth. And all that to say, do your best to not use colors straight from the tube. Now, I will say when I'm highlighting with ivory, I often do use it. Well, there might be something in my brush too, so whatever's in my brush, I might add to the ivory. But usually I will add a little something to each color, and that you'll get a sense of that over time as well. All right, next is, excuse me, developing the habit or playing with the habit Using a bright turquoise or fluorescent pink or red or orange underpainting before you even start. These are wood panels, and I have these bright colors already painted on them so that when I paint something, the little pops of that, it'll probably be 99 or 98% covered up, but something will show through. Here's an example. This whole background, you can see some of it peeking through, was a mixture of bright oranges and fluorescence, and not much of it ended up in the finished piece. I had some elements that I kept, so with negative space painting here and here, I kept that part, and the rest got covered with either elements or this off-white ivory. And then here, you know, I scraped away the leaf lines and the background came through. So it's really fun to experiment with bright colors, and there is no right or wrong color. Some people say it's good to use a complement as your background. So for example, if you're going to paint a floral with a lot of greenery, doing a red background, or but I've seen landscapes done with a background that was hot pink like this or turquoise, and it looks beautiful. So just experiment with that. Bottom line is to play. Don't be afraid of color. It's a great thing to play with on a day that maybe you have some time to play with creating, but you don't feel inspired to create any particular thing. Maybe you're not feeling well. I have Lyme disease, chronic Lyme, so there are days or parts of days where I am just, you know, sitting there going, I don't know what to paint. So that's a great time to just play with color, do some color discovery charts, think about moving a color in one direction or another by adding other colors, and you will over time develop a sense of what you like, which will lead into your color signature. So be playful, experiment, and have fun.